like I feel like you have to tone that down because it seems like it's a bad thing to be independent. So I would say that for me is one of the taboos. In here.
Sheena, you up next.
Okay. I would say for me, I just hate the fact that strong Black woman has so many other synonyms. I'm so tired of people taking that and making it mean so much more. Like in any other culture, if you call them a strong anything, it's seen as like one thing. But for some reason, when it's a Black woman, it can be used as a negative connotation. And that's the part that just makes me feel uncomfortable. So many times, like people will confront me and they'll say like, you're a strong Black woman. But what they really mean is that you're an angry Black woman, or that you're, capable of speaking up, or super direct, or, whatever, aggressive, whatever those things may mean. Sometimes it's just frustrating because if I'm direct and able and capable of telling people what my boundaries are or what I need from them, that doesn't make me a strong Black woman. That just makes someone who knows my boundaries. Like, why does it have to be like so like, oh, you're a strong Black woman? Like, I hate how we have that connotation. As soon as you're, it's so funny how sometimes you see like the true light in someone once you're dating them or once you're friends with them, because then when you get into an argument, here you go with the strong Black woman. What? Pause. How did we get here? So now all of a sudden I'm strong Black woman, when before I was just person. Now all of a sudden, as soon as I speak up or give directness or set boundaries, I'm considered something that is it's just why, So that's the reason why sometimes it makes me feel uncomfortable, because I don't know about y'all, but I know white girls, I know Spanish girls, I know Asian girls, and they all know how to cut up whenever it's time. So I have no idea why we get the like the commentary of a strong Black woman, and that also means angry Black woman and direct and like all of these things that are negative, when it's just like, no, I'm strong, I'm independent, I set boundaries, but that doesn't mean anything negative. It just means that, you know what I mean? And I kind of just like want it to stay that, like, let's preserve that for what it is and not make that mean other things, because somehow when Black women are strong and independent, it somehow makes people intimidated. And that's why they have to put that little umbrella over it. I don't need an umbrella, baby. Let it fall.
You are so right about that. I'm so glad you said that. I could not get the word synonym out of my head, but it's like, strength is not synonymous with anything else. You are so right about that.
Man.
I was able to remove bro man though, so
man,
that's good. Imagine register for this event.
Did y'all get the DMs? Because I got the DMs.
Oh yeah, I see. I got them.
Imagine registering for this event just to put on that show. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
But it just shows you how bothered people are. It just shows you. And that's why I tell people, like, you be thinking that what you're doing is so small, but obviously it's ringing bells in people's ears that you need to know about. So don't ever think that you're too small. Somebody is always listening and always bothered, okay?
Absolutely. Living in your head rent free.
So this topic that we always actually came from Monica, because one of our first debates, she hit me to game about like how being strong is like not as positive as I may think, like automatically putting that on Black women, not as a powerful thing to say as I may think. So what do you think about this topic, Monica?
So that's true. That's funny. It was our first debate, but it's not necessarily to say that you can't or shouldn't call Black women strong. But I think the other way that you said it beautifully, it's that oftentimes we're not allowed the space for a synonym, right? And then when you think about the concept of strength, and we look at how that bleeds into. And so I'm not sure if you all are familiar with Dr. Cheryl Giscombe, but she was a registered nurse who went on to get her PhD, and she created a concept called the Black Superwoman Schema. And it's essentially made up of 5 different components that have a significant impact on Black women's lives. And so one is, it talks about the perceived obligation to present an image of strength. And essentially what the schema talks about is how Black women really internalize a lot of the stereotypes put on us. And then we project them back into the world and into our lived experiences. And so the first one talks about the perceived obligation of strength. And so the society tells us that because we're so strong that, you know, we always have to have that front on, we always have to present that. And even when we need help, we don't necessarily ask for it or even know how to ask for it, because we also we're not taught that we can ask for it or we should need it. The second one is the perceived obligation to suppress emotion. And so from that, we all know that Black women, we don't get to have emotions. We don't get to have bad days. We don't get to be sad. We don't get to be irritated. Everybody else gets to experience the full array of emotions. But for us, we are either very happy or we're angry. There's no middle ground for us.
Okay,
And so
right.
I know working in corporate, I experience it all the time. I don't get an off day. And I'm sure you ladies and all of your endeavors can definitely relate to that. The third is resistance to vulnerability or help from others. And this really reminds me of the misogynoir that we see specifically in the medical field. You know, Serena Williams is a textbook example of somebody who was a victim of that, because she, in her space, was not seen as having the ability to be vulnerable, to be in pain. And so preeclampsia, which is one of the most common effects of pregnancy, and also one of the easiest to cure, is one of the number one killers for Black women during pregnancy. And Serena Williams suffered from preeclampsia, which threw a blood clot to her lung and almost killed her, because people didn't believe that she, this woman who's the picture of strength and a strong Black woman, could really be in the pain she's in, you know? And then the fourth one is motivation to succeed despite limited resources. And with us, we all know about the welfare queen stereotype, even though Black women are not the number one consumers of welfare and have not been since it was created during the Great Depression. But with that, it's ingrained in us that we can't ask for help. We can't have needs. We can't, whether it's a government resource or it's a partner within our homes or, you know, spouses, what have you, we're taught that we should be able to do it all by ourselves. And then that leads to the fifth and final concept of the schema, which is the prioritization of caregiving in contrast with self-care. And so we see this right now explicitly in the Black Lives Matter movements. And we see how and not just within Black Lives Matter, but even if we want to go back to civil rights, we see Black women throughout all aspects of history, particularly for the Black race, who are consistently putting themselves on the front line, consistently putting ourselves in the forefront for every movement, for everything, to mobilize our communities to move forward. And sometimes we do it at the detriment of ourselves, and we don't think twice about it, because we're taught that amongst all of these other things, we also have to be the leaders and the followers simultaneously in our community. And so that's something that when I hear strong, it really makes me think about that. Strength in and of itself isn't inherently a bad thing, but the word gets misplaced, and then we look at what grows out of it, and it's really detrimental if we don't contain it.
And let me just add, that still is like something that's like so common today. I'm a nurse, and I find that like no matter how much people are taught this, it is still proven that the majority of doctors still don't see Black women's pain the same as other cultures. And it is ridiculous. And the part that's even more ridiculous, and the part that's probably even more memorable, is that it's us too. I didn't realize that I was even doing it until I started to say, like, wait a hot damn minute. Why is that the case that this person got a surgery and this person got the same exact surgery, but they have two different pain regimens? Or why is that I had to convince that doctor to come see my patient rather than just saying, hey, I need you? You know what I mean? I myself didn't even notice it, because we see ourselves as that way sometimes. And not even, you just don't realize some of these issues. So I think it's like so important that we also check in with ourselves and take moments to realize, like, okay, how am I perpetuating these stereotypes? How am I pushing these stereotypes forward? Because we all would love to say that we're not a part of them, but at the end of the day, the system works entirely too well for us not to be feeding into it as well. You know what I'm saying? So every day I challenge myself to say, like, how am I perpetuating these stereotypes that everybody else thinks about me? And how can I change them in my household? Even simple things. I've had incidences at work or something that happened with a nurse or a fellow nurse or whatever. And every other Black nurse there told me, shh, don't say anything, because you know, if you say something, you're going to be the angry Black woman. You know, if you say something, they're going to blackball you and they're going to find other ways to write you up. You're going to get in trouble. And all of those things are probably true. But think of if every single woman said, you know what, it's cool because I'm gonna stand behind you and say that shit happened. So what's up? You know, and then what situation would we have had? You know what I mean? So the principle is that we perpetuate it too by saying like, yeah, I am gonna be viewed that way. No. Regardless of whether I'm gonna be viewed that way or not, I'm still gonna create space and I'm gonna take up space, and that's on them.
I'm so glad you said that, because I work in TV and film, and in the TV industry, we are so underrepresented as Black women. I almost work on, I would say, close to 90% Black content TV. And yet there are no Black writers, there's no Black directors, there's no no one to check anyone in that space, but yet the stories are about us. And I found myself in the position of exactly what you said, which is if I speak up and say, you know, that hairstyle isn't right, if I speak up and say that the language or the lingo isn't, you know, true to Black culture, if I speak up and I say something to someone that's above me about the way these shows are being written or misrepresented, then you get blackballed. You don't get asked back on the set. You know, your contract is cut. And to your point, you tend to kowtow down to some of that because you want to stay gainfully employed. But what if we all do that? You know, we have to break the stereotype at some level and be willing to risk it, much like civil rights movements or anywhere else, where we are willing to give up something in order for the greater good of everyone to succeed.
And it's not easy. It is not easy. I'm definitely not saying it's easy. I'm definitely not saying it's an easy road, but I think that's also the point of having enough financial independence and enough financial security that we can create our own paths and not go along paths that don't serve us. So it's definitely not easy. And like I said, I feel like the whole point is uplifting each other. The more that one of us does it and then the other one helps and then the other one helps, it'll be easier to climb out of it. But we perpetuate these stereotypes so much, even in the way we deal with each other.
So true.
Oh, to that point, like that's a great comment, because I was actually on Twitter the other day and I saw a thread going around where people were asking, it was started by a Black woman, and she was asking other Black women, have you ever had a Black female superior and what was your experience? And just reading through the thread, I would say like 9 times out of 10, every dozen or so messages, you would see people talking about these horrible experiences that they had. Young Black women talking about their middle-aged to older Black female superiors and supervisors and management. And it was consistently conversations, like you said, with folks saying, hey, don't speak up, don't talk about this. And when you do it, not only are you kind of blackballed from your own space within your organization, but also they experience the blackballing from their superior who was trying to stay on the right side, so to speak. And so just reading that thread, when you said that, it made me immediately think of that.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
Well, since it chimed to you, Brianna, my next question is, what's a stereotype that's perpetuated onto you? Like,
that I have to deal with?
Yes. Rather in your community, your job, your business.
I mean, I think it's in every type of level. I think in Las Vegas, I can start there. Being a Black woman, that, not to bring up material things, but just to get the scheme of the picture. It's very weird because I'm from Virginia and I was around predominantly Black people. So when you have success, it's not a bad thing. They don't question it. Here in Nevada on the West Coast, they question when Black people have some type of success. So being that I have my online business, a lot of the times it can't just be because I have my own business why I dress the way I dress, or I carry myself the way I am, or I get that stereotype. I get a lot of questions of, okay, so what else do you do? Especially because of the type of nature that Las Vegas has. Women who have, I guess, what you measure success in, cars or a nice place or, that type of thing, it has to correlate with something else. So that's one of the biggest things that I have here. I would say, just as a Black woman, being here is very different being a Black woman here versus being a Black woman at home. It's definitely a different type of dynamic. They definitely see you as different. I definitely don't feel, I had to, like, when I first got here, I often thought, like, is it bad to be Black here? Because that's how I felt. And you always had type of stereotypes. They want to know what, you know, what you're doing, and why you're doing it, or who you're doing it with, or it's stuff like that. I can't even like tackle one stereotype that I get here. So it's just everything, because Black people here are just very put into a box where they kind of feel like we're here, but we're not really an asset. And when you are an asset, it's because you're famous or something like that. So the fact that I could be a successful woman, it has to imply that I have something else negative tagged along with that.
Mm-hmm.
You should go on and say it, because my daughter was born in Vegas. They either think you're stripping, you're gaming, or, you know, you got a sugar daddy out there.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I get men, and that comes across of how men present themselves to me. I could be by myself. I didn't want to say it like that, so I kind of was trying to like be coy about it. But you can't, being a Black woman here and looking a certain way, portraying a certain way, they automatically feel like you have a sugar daddy or something. I get that all the time. I get DMs like that. I get like asking me, I've from people back at home have insinuated things. And it's not just simply I'm doing well, I'm working, I'm being successful, I'm doing the right things. It has to be implied with something else. So I think that's what my stereotype that I deal with.
What about you, Jade?
I would say I've been an entrepreneur now for almost 20 years. And so it would go really back to that independence and strength, that because in everyone's eyes, you know, everything is so put together that I don't need anything and I don't need anyone. You know, so I think that's probably the biggest stereotype that I've dealt with. I mean, for a really long time, for different reasons. You know, it could go all the way back to grade school. I was a professional athlete even back then. And so I wasn't at school. So the assumption is, oh, you're so popular and you're so this. And it all has to come back to the stereotype of what strength means to other people, or independence means to other people. So I'd say out of everything, that strength platform has been something that I always fought as a stereotype.
Sheena, we talk about this a couple times. What's some of the stereotypes that's projected onto you?
I got two. Okay, so
don't drop it.
So the first one is, I cannot stand, one of my biggest pet peeves is that why is it that when Black women have a good career or a good income or whatever, that it automatically takes us off the table to be wine and dine, to be given things, to be supported. With other cultures, it is totally normal for a woman to make six figures and her man still buy her the world, take care of her, support her. When it's Black women, it feels like whenever we are in a position where we have something or we can take care of ourselves or we're independent, it feels like it takes us off the plate of being catered to or supported in that type of way. Mm-hmm. And if you want to, let's just say that you are catered to that way, it's like, oh, well, you don't want to work, you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that. It's like, it's crazy how when white women are stay-at-home moms, it's like, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom, that's so cool. But when Black women are, it's like, oh, she don't want to work, she this, she. It's like, hold on a minute, hold on here. That part just really, really bothers me. So me being a nurse, people assume that nurses make all of this money, even though 35% of our income is taken out in taxes. People think that we just make all of this buku money, and it's just like, it's very apparent in the way that people approach me. Guys, they talk about money first date, but they don't want to give none. They just obviously talk about it to let me know that they know what I guess what they think of me, I guess. I don't know. But it just is like, I really never had many guys first date come to me and be willing to spend and support and be like, okay, let's do this and let's do that. And just like wine and dine. And I'm not saying that you got to pay bills. I'm not saying that it has to go that far. I'm just saying as far as like, just treating me like I'm a normal person and not acting like, it's just funny to me how if you knew a woman who didn't have anything, and let's just say that she didn't work, and let's just say, you know, whatever, and they were that type of girl who was always talking about, oh, my bills, I need this, I need that, then you would be like this. But as soon as you think that a woman has it, or as soon as you think that she's independent, it automatically means that like, you know, that you can't give up, or now you feel like that's expected. I don't know. I have no idea the reason why. I guess we would have to ask men for that. Go ahead, Brianna.
I'm gonna add something to that because I think it's really crazy. I have a white girlfriend and we are like the same. And I noticed that if I am like, okay, I like certain things, because that's what I'm used to, what I like to do. I like to go to certain restaurants and stuff like that. So, you know, I always get the, well, you're bougie and you're this. Black women get that whole, if we ask for the finer things or we expect the same type of treatment as being wined and dined and stuff, we get a bad rep. We're gold. I've gotten so.
But that's our men. I feel like it's our men though, because in my opinion, when white dudes are encountering women that expect that, they either go along the train or they go sit down. Whereas our men, instead of them seeing it as like, okay, I'm either for her or not for her, they get insecure and then try to tear you down. And it's like, if you're not that type of guy, you don't have to be my mans. You could just go over there. You don't have to now, oh, you a gold digger. Just because you can't afford it, you don't have to.
It's crazy. It's crazy to me because my like I said, my friend, she's white, and I put that into the forefront because the way that she's like, well, the guy that she's dating, he's black. She dates black men or whatever, and he's giving her large sums of money, like they go on trips all the time and stuff like that. Now his children that he has with black women, when they've had those conversations and stuff like that, he was like, it was a problem. Like she was using, like his child's mother was using him. The black woman was using him. But this white woman who is like, okay, let's go on a trip. I want to be wined and dined and that and the third. It was like, okay, like cool. I was like, so why didn't you invest in your child's mother the way that you invest in my friend? And not to put anything like she doesn't deserve it, but I often wonder, why is it that Black men in particular, because I don't date outside my race, but Black men in particular, when it comes to a Black woman, why don't you see us as
worthy of being supported in that way?
Yeah, being invested in, being wined and dined without something, like in return. She's not asking anything in return. Like you're giving her this money. But with me, it's you're gold digging, you're this, and I always wonder where did that come from? Where does that dynamic come from?
And for me, let's be very clear, because no woman on this panel needs their bills paid by a man. So I just want to make that very clear, that that's not what we're saying. We're not saying that we want men to pay our bills and take care of us, anything like that. We're just saying that we notice that when it's white women, they're allowed to create space and have boundaries and set, rules, or not rules, but to create boundaries to as how they want to be treated. But when it's Black women that do it, we're seen as negative or as bougie or as gold diggers or whatever. Yeah. So that's all that we're saying. Every woman on this panel probably has a different standard as to how they want to be treated. But the point is that how they want to be treated should be how they're treated, or you should just step away. You don't have to be negative towards them or mean towards them or create negative thought processes because of that. Right. And that kind of leads me into my number 2. A stereotype that people always see me as is that just because I'm vocal about something that I think is a disparity or something that I think is negative does not mean that I can't ever admit when I'm wrong, or that I cannot listen well or understand. And I think that is a very, very big thing of Black women who are direct and set boundaries. There's been so many times where somebody speaks to me and they're telling me something that they're checking me on, and they might be right or have good points or have a good perspective. And when I say, oh, okay, I can see that. Oh, here we go. I just said, I understand what you meant. I'm listening. Like, I just feel like people automatically assume because you're a strong Black woman, here we go again, that means that you can never admit that you're wrong, that means that you can never, be completely, what is it called, submissive. Like, just because we're strong does not mean we do not want a dominant man that will lead us. Sir, lead me to Wakanda, lead me to church, lead me to our mansion, lead us to vacation, lead me all there. Like, you're not saying nothing, lead me. Like, it's not, I think all of us want to be soft and submissive and gentle in our spaces. It's just the point that you're going to have to come correct. So don't make it seem like I'm this aggressive woman that can't be taught and can't be, I guess you can say, submissive in her own right and listen or whatever. Even with employment, when we come to her, we know, sir, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I can take that, admit that, and sign the write-up. But if I'm right, I'm gonna stand my ground. And that's just that on that. I'm not gonna tiptoe around it because you clearly are intimidated by my personality or the fact that I choose to create space. That's on you, baby boo.
Yeah. All that.
Where the button for that?
Monica, you up next.
Okay, yes, amen to all that. Running all the way back. But speaking of work, I would say a stereotype that I get a lot is, so for me, I am a businesswoman to my core. By trade, I'm a software engineer. I also consult in the music space and other technical ventures. And I often get demonized for my desire to want to work. Like, a lot of people tell me, you're such a workaholic. What have you never slow down? And it's often by the men in our community, because I also don't date outside my race. And so with that, particularly when it comes to conversations with men, and not just on the romantic interest, but even my father, who really instilled excellence in me and my siblings, he often will tell me, you need to slow down, you need to relax, you're doing too much. And when I dive into the conversations, I find that the independent woman is often seen as an emasculation to men. Mm-hmm. And so that within my job, especially working within the tech space, I am the youngest person on my team, but I'm also the manager of my team. I have 7 direct reports. All of them are white and 5 of them are men. And so oftentimes I will get that feedback of being corrective at work. I don't have time, when there's a $5 million budget on the line, I don't have time to say, oh, I'm so sorry, this was incorrect. Can you come back and try again? It's, hey, we discussed this. This is the issue. This is our deadline. Can you fix this? Get this back to me, et cetera, et cetera. But for Black women, we're not given the space. Like, we're often given extremes. We either have to be, Susie Homemaker, even in the office, or we've got to be, the she devil from hell. And so anytime you are not Susie Homemaker, even when you're stern but fair, then all of a sudden you're just this horrible demonic person. And I feel like a lot of women who take pride in work and really value work are often demonized for that, not because you're fighting the stereotype of being the gold digging Black woman, but it's like really the catch-22 for us. Because either if we want the hypergamous lifestyle, which I advocate for every Black woman to pursue hypergamy, because if we're going to live in a patriarchal society and men want to be providers, then provide. But, when we turn around and have the conversations for Black women, I don't feel like we get the space. I feel like we're either considered the gold digger or we're the emasculator, because we want to be the Lawrence from Think Like a Man who wants to be her own man, when in reality, it's like, or I could just enjoy my craft. And that is probably the biggest stereotype I fight all the time is, I do enjoy my work. I am a boss in the business room and on all of my other ventures, but that doesn't mean that, I don't have that softer side. You don't ask any of my white female coworkers or my male coworkers to come to work and be soft. So why is that projected onto me? Why, when I'm being a leader, it's like everyone else can be a boss, but Black women can only be bossy.
Can I add on to that that was very prevalent? I don't know if you guys, I'm very much getting into the world of politics. Mm-hmm. And I've been watching the debates heavily and watching, the news heavily. But this example really showed in the vice president debates with Kamala, and how, she had to kind of pull back on her range. She's known for, having those taglines, that comeback or whatever, and she had to pull it back. And it was a constant like between struggle, like, okay, you can't push over on me. So I'm speaking, but I still have to call you Mr. President. And you can say my name wrong and stuff like that, but I have to be respectful. I have to have a certain tone and stuff. And then I even was like kind of looking on that same, like while the debates were going, I was looking at the comments. I was on Twitter and I was, doing my little commentary and stuff. And I was looking at how they were like, how disrespectful she was when she said that. But it was alarming, not because of men per se, but because of women. So I feel like it's really weird because we don't only deal with all of this, these double standards and stuff with just men, it's women too that we have to deal with that. And I thought that was kind of like something that like I wanted to bring up once you said that, because we have to even have this type of, as a Black woman, how we come across to even other races of women. And I think that's a whole nother level too.
Absolutely. And to Sheena's point earlier about how we continue to participate in our own erasure to an extent, I saw a similar commentary about Kamala online as well. And one thing I kept seeing consistently popping up is when she was telling him, hey, I'm speaking, I'm still speaking. People were online calling her the clapback queen. And I'm like, her making space for herself and reminding him, hey, I'm just as qualified, if not more qualified, than you are to be here. And this is my space and you don't get to march all over it. Folks were still online calling it a clapback. And it just goes to show you, and what I saw saying that, it was often a lot of Black women online who were like, not only crowning her the clapback queen, but also like cheering that on, thus affirming that her just taking back her time is somehow her clapping back. And folks are really like celebrating this as if her even just saying, hey, still talking, let me finish, is somehow a nice, nasty type of thing. And that really we project onto ourselves and everyone else projects onto us as well.
And I actually saw somebody made like a whole video talking about like with different clips from like CNN and different like, I guess like reports of like talking about her attitude and how rude she was and disrespectful she was. And I just think that it's so funny to me how everyone wants to be so in control of like how, like what? Like you're really taking that much control over somebody else's perspective and how she responds to someone. And it just really goes to show you how hard it is to do those kind of jobs, because I'm being pulled at from all different directions. If I'm too Black, that's a problem. If I'm too white, that's a problem. If I sneak in by being nice with the white folks, y'all still gonna bash me and say I'm not doing enough for the Black folks. It's like, y'all, you really can't win when you're in a type of situation. And people always joke around and say like, oh, you should run for office. I would never, because y'all not gonna be happy regardless. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not, and I'm definitely not saying that we shouldn't make every politician fight for us. But if you think that any politician can get into the US government and only fight for Black lives, stop it. This is the US. This is a whole country of all different races and demographics. No politician can get into office strictly by saying that they're going to do everything for Black people. So when people come at Obama, I really just want to kick him in the neck because, again, he has to play nice to a certain extent. He cannot go into office and say, you know what, I'm rooting for everybody Black, all the laws, we're gonna change some things to benefit Black people. It's just like, right. We have to stop. We have to learn how to support one another without picking each other out. Me and Donovan had a conversation when I first met him, and we talked about this, and he said, you know, a lot of times we portray these images and we put them on the forefront. We portray Black men as one thing. And I had to think to myself, you know what? Again, self-reflection to myself. There are conversations that I have that white people are listening to. I gotta chill, because at the end of the day, there's certain conversations that need to be just had with us. I don't want somebody to see somebody that looks like me in a negative light all the time. There's a time and a place. There's some situations where we're going to talk about it and we're going to hash it out and it's going to be called solutions. But when you have certain threads, the posh standards get so many negative comments about Black men. Mm-hmm. And about Black women. And it's like, how are we supposed to move forward if we the number one people tearing each other down? The number one. but I ain't going, I could listen, we could keep on going, because then we also have, it's just, we never are there for each other. It's so many, even in Philly, our crime rate is up like 38%. Every single goon out there never killed a KKK member. Never kill somebody that was harassing a Black woman. Never. And I'm not saying they should, but I'm just saying that we have to do better at protecting each other and supporting each other. You sitting here fighting your own, you killing your own, rather than having, you see these white militia groups is ready. They got whole freaking courses in their backyard learning how to shoot them up, bang, bang. And it's like, we sitting here fighting each other instead of finding ways to combat what's about to happen. Like, we need to be prepared. And the first thing that we need to do is have each other back. If you don't like what somebody's doing, you don't have to speak negatively about them on the internet. You can DM them, pull them to a side, have a conversation, and or support what you do like.
Period.
Anything else to add? Anybody want to add?
We could probably go on a million topics on just those ones that are thrown out. So we'll let you add some more questions.
Well, I typically only have one more, and so we're way ahead of schedule. So you can spend as much time as you want on this, but the question, Jade, would be, what would how would you advise a Black man, after listening to all you guys experiences, how would you advise him to properly support you without dimming your light or demeaning everything you have going on?
That's a good question. And obviously the answer is very individual to individual Black men. But what I find most often to be problematic is just the fact that they come into relationships, be it friendships, business, or intimate relationships, with stereotypes already preset. And so you're fighting not only childhood demons and traumas that they have experienced as Black men that have their own set of issues, but you're constantly having to deal with the stereotype that they come with. One of the things that I always perpetuate is a level of communication that involves transparency and vulnerability. And until we are able to get to those conversations and remove emotions out of conversations, I'm not sure that the support will be there. I think that there's just, that is such a broad topic, but I guess if I had to say something in general, it really is that every Black woman out there does not fit the stereotypical model. If she's making six figures, if she's just employed, if she loves her career like Monica, if she is doing well and independent, none of those things mean anything other than what they are. Let it be, she's a go-getter. Let it be she's bringing something to the table. Let it be that she is independent. And no, she doesn't need me, but maybe she wants you. Everything doesn't have to have a stigma that goes along with it. And to just treat Black women independently for their strength and allow strength to be just that, not something that demeans them, diminishes them, or somehow makes them the lesser. That would be my best advice.
Brianna?
Okay. Well,
I gotta turn the light on. It got dark in here.
let me sit upright. I think men that are like you, Donovan, like they get it. They get what type of role that they need to be as a Black man for Black women. I feel like that's not who I need to talk to. That's not who needs these tips, who needs to hear this conversation. It's the Black men that choose to maybe date outside their race or have some type of some type of resentment towards Black women because maybe one did them wrong or something. It's those ones that needs to have that conversation, because the Black men that supporting us and stuff, they get it. I don't need to say nothing. They understand what I need because they know what they need. Like, but I'm almost forgetting what my point was when I was brewing in my head. But I'm gonna say, for especially here, because it's not a lot of Black men out here that that date Black women out here, which is crazy because I don't date outside my race. So that's like slim picking. But I often have conversations with them because they'll be like, they will try to categorize me. And I need you to not categorize me and think that that's okay. And that's something that I'm okay with, or that makes me feel better, because it's not. And that is a tip that I will say. If you're going to love a Black woman, love all of us. You may not want to be with me or but respect me. Respect other Black women. Just on the line, like you don't always have to treat Black women right if you are only if you're romantically interested in them. Even when you're not, when you decide to date outside your race, like it should still be a brother and sister thing. Like I'm still gonna praise my Black women because I see them out there. Because there's some bad Black women out there, and there's some good ones, and there's some bad white women, and there's some bad Latina women, and there all of that. But you support your own no matter what. And I think just as that, we need to all be on code, and that goes for Black women too. Like that date outside their race and stuff. But more so happen, I hear Black men and really take the time to figure out why you hate Black women so much, because we're supposed to be for each other and not against each other. And so yeah, I think that's the tip. Really look inside every Black man that feels some type of way about a Black woman or whatever. Go inside yourself and figure out what it is, because 9 times out of 10, when I do speak to these men that say, I would date you because you seem like a different Black woman or whatever the case, or I've had so many crazy like things said to me, and I almost can't believe they're Black men. That's one of the things that I would say. You need to identify, you need to love yourself, and then come love your Black woman, support your Black woman. And even if you don't find me romantic, like you're not interested in me romantically, don't let that be the reason why you feel like you're going outside your race. Don't disrespect us. Don't do that, because nobody else does that with their own. So I would say that.
Sheena, I know you got something. What's up?
You know what? I'm gonna try to put it on a positive note. See, here's the thing. I think that like all of us, not just Black men, we sometimes live in the facade of who we are. We deem ourselves things, whether we're worthy to be deemed that or not. There's plenty of women that be like, yeah, I throw it down on my man, did it. Meanwhile, y'all been doing the same position since 2008, sis. Like, we be thinking that we really be doing stuff, and sometimes we don't. So it's the same thing with men. And I'm calling us out first so that they can feel more comfortable. But I feel like a lot of men live in a facade. They deem themselves good men without actually doing the work to be a good man. You're deeming yourself a good husband without actually doing the work. You're deeming yourself a provider without actually doing the work to actually be a provider. These things all take effort. They all take time. They all take energy. And I feel like if more people actually internalize, like people are so in love with the facade of themselves or the potential of themselves that they can't even see the real them. Seeing the real you can be almost depressing, because you see like, damn, I really ain't shit, or damn, I really ain't what I thought I was, or damn, I'm really not this or that. Those things are important. And it's like you're in a relationship with somebody else whom you want to also be in love with your potential, but you don't want to actually do the work. And that is a huge problem to me in our community. Like, there's so many Black men that be like, oh, I'm a good dad. bruh, you see your child once a month. You see him 12 times a year. His teacher sees him more. His whoever sees him more. His mom's boyfriend sees him more. The point is that when it comes down to it, you have to actually do the work. You cannot just deem yourself a good father because that's how you feel inside. You cannot deem yourself a good partner while you cheat and you this and the third. There's so many men that are like, well, I'm a good guy. So then you want girls to kiss your ass. No, sir. No, sir. If you deem yourself anything, it should be because one, you're actually working towards that. It's a constant effort. Me being a good woman is not something that I say one time and let go. It's a constant thing that I try to be. It's a constant situation that I try to instill. Being a good mom is something that I constantly work on. Every day I'm thinking to myself, how can I do this better? How can I be a better this or a better that? So I think when it comes down to it, it's just about really getting down to who you are, because we really can't change anything until we acknowledge our bullshit. It's so many people out there that's saying don't vote and don't even know what they voting for. Like, stupid. Like, it's just a principle that like we don't really get down to the nitty gritty of stuff. We think something and then we just keep it going. And then another thing I would say is just like, I feel like so many of us, we want one thing, but we just really don't want to do the work. There's a lot of people that look on the social media and they see people that they appear happy, or they see women that they think look good or whatever, and they think that those things are reality. When truth be told, all of our pictures are edited, my mans. We use filters just like everybody else. People got surgery, people got makeup, people got hairlines, men got fake beards. At the end of the day, what's in your household is really what's real. I think that men need to start taking women and looking at them as real people. I want to have a conversation with a man and him really value my conversation rather than him just looking at what he can get out of me. And so many times I really enjoy talking to men. Me and Donovan have spoke several times, and not on no romantic stuff at all. Like, I really enjoy speaking to the opposite sex and picking their brain and talking to them. And I want a man that really truly enjoys that too. I want them to like me as a person and really value what I bring to the table. And I think that until men start seeing us as friends or seeing us as like, you know what I mean? Like as equal, because think about it. A man, how many men that you know will sleep with they best friend wife? Like, that's rare. They would never do that. Why? Because everybody gonna clown you. The whole neighborhood gonna say you corny. Like, you're gonna be seen as an unloyal person. Everybody gonna think you a snake. But how many people will still support you going back to your wife after you cheat multiple times? Everybody in the community, oh, but he loved her though. Oh, it's cool. You're cool with it. So you're willing to snake the person that you sleep next to every single night, that controls your finances, controls how often you see your kids. Everything about your life changes if that situation doesn't work out. But you'll be more loyal to your friend who could be the best friend ever, still does not affect your inner household and your actual kids and your finances in your life. So I just feel like if men started to see us more as friends, as more as valuable pieces, as more of a whole person, then you will understand your need. If you have a friend, you obviously know that you have to put in effort to get friendship back. You have to put it so into them to get it back. You have to support them as much as you support, and it's a constant revolving door. Your friend isn't going to keep inviting you to stuff if you don't come. So it's the same thing with your girl at home. You want her to do freaky stuff, you do freaky stuff with her. You want her to be more motivated, you be more motivated. You want her to lose weight, you got a whole beer belly talking about somebody else's body. The point is that, like, let's be more understanding to who we are, and also understanding to women as a whole person, and not just, oh, my old girl at home. No, my phenomenal Black queen is smarter than half of you niggas that's at my house.
I'm through, queen.
All right, Monica.
All right. So funny enough, when Donovan and I were kind of having the conversation that laid the foundation for his idea for this town hall, we actually had what we'll call the teachable moment. So yeah. Donovan and I were talking about, I don't remember which post it was, but it was something on your page. And we were just talking about how there seems to be this disconnect from these, these conversations similar to ones we're having and these small-sided groups. And then how do we bridge the gap for the larger inclusive conversation amongst our community, but also taking that leap then from discussion to action. And one thing I told Donovan is, and I say this to a lot of Black women, particularly in the digital space that I know, and then some that are in my client space, that, you know, I feel like as Black women, we have to be very skeptical of any space we see online that is dedicated to us, but is not curated by us. And so what I mean by that is, Black women's pain is profitable. We see this in a series of events that have happened in pop culture. We can reference, you know, Tory Lanez and Meg Thee Stallion. We see this with Rihanna and Chris Brown. We see this in a myriad of ways, is that it's really easy to profit off our narrative, but Black women particularly don't necessarily get that profit. We also see this in the what was it? Black Girl Magic, the creator, and forgive me, I don't remember her name, but the Black woman who created Black Girl Magic, actually, when that went on to be monetized, put on shirts and books and all this other stuff, she didn't see any of that profit. So she was erased from the whole movement that she saw. And we see this also with Black women within the Black Lives Matter movement as well. And so when we were having that conversation with Donovan, I was talking to him about some of the comments that I had seen within his page and people giving kind of feedback. And particularly, I saw a couple of Black women who were saying that they didn't know if they could trust his page. And when Donovan and I had the conversation, he was like, you know, giving me his perspective, because he is very invested, you know, not just in the Black community, but in the Black woman. And we had a really candid discussion about why, for me personally, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that those women were apprehensive. And that's not to say that, you know, he's not doing enough or he's not positioning himself in a space that does project allyship and it is true to the core of that. But also, we have seen the profiting occurring enough off of us, our pain, as well as our deaths, that we have to be apprehensive, and everybody has to be screened, even the Black men within the conversation. And so that discussion we dove in, and Donovan asked me, he said, you know, how do I do that? How do I give Black women a space to have the conversation? And I told him, you know, I think you need to pass the mic. And his response, the initial response was, but it's my page. Like, how do I do that? You know, I can't just give my page to Black women. And so immediately I was like, see. But then, you know, I had to, you know, relax, because I know him, I know his heart, I know his morals, his ethics, his core values from discussions we've had over the years. And so I told him, you know, it's not necessarily about you giving your page to somebody else or you just saying, hey, I'm going to slide this to Black women. But it is to say that we are the lived experience of our own journeys and our own experiences. And so when it comes to the discussion and the narrative of them, that has to come from us. And I think once we're able to create that, the second half of that is, you know, from Black men have to want to be allies. You know, they have to want to be in that space of allyship to Black women, and not just on the nice guy complex, because newsflash, if you have to run around telling everyone how much of a nice guy you are, you're probably not that nice of a guy. And so that's the problem with that statement, but also listening to understand as opposed to responding. A lot of times when I see the gender wars that are happening online, and I use quotes because I don't necessarily like that phrasing, but for lack of a better phrase, the gender wars happening online between Black men and Black women, what I'm seeing a lot is people who are listening just so they can respond. You know, somebody will come through and give them their whole lived experience and someone will pull it out. And we see this, you know, with the Protect Black Women hashtag. Black women are out online saying, protect us. And people are literally hopping online and saying, but, or they'll find one little piece of the experience that they don't necessarily agree with. And all of a sudden they're not listening to anything else. They're just going to hold on to that. And the moment they get to speak, they're going to try to regurgitate that and try to debunk you, so to speak. And so when I told Donovan of having this conversation, it's not to say that Black men can't be a part of the conversation, because they have to. If we're going to bridge the gap, we have to come together. But that is to say that we have to be in the same way that as Black people, we don't allow white people the space to tell us what racism is to us and how we experience it. When it comes to the concept of misogyny and patriarchy for Black women, and misogynoir specifically, men have to understand that they cannot be the curators of that definition. I cannot tell you how many times I've been online and I see men who say, I'm not a misogynist because I'm not calling women bitches or slapping them across the face. And it's like, yeah, you're not, and you might not be the man that's cheating on the girlfriend, but are you sitting around laughing and dapping your homies up when he's telling you the story about how he almost got caught? Or are you helping to be that alibi when his girl is calling and asking where you're at? You know, you might not call women bitches, but do you laugh when your friends say it? You know, do you giggle about it in the group chat? Do you share that images online and have those discussions amongst yourself? When you hear it, does it invoke laughter in you as opposed to concern or causation? You know, when you heard protect Black women, did you feel like it was complete sentence or a qualifier? And those are the questions that I feel like we have to ask, you know, particularly when it comes to that concept. I know, you know, regardless of where people feel like they want to sit on either side of the Tory Lanez and Meg Thee Stallion situation, one thing I know is Twitter was full of girl dads until that situation happened. And then where'd all the girl dads go? You know, and so that's another thing that goes back to Brianna's point of people, of Black men, particularly for Black women. I notice this a lot too, is there's a lot of Black men who only want to protect the Black women that mean something to them personally. You know, you hear those conversations of, I hear people say things like, Black men specifically say things like, you know, oh, you know, you can't do that to her because I got a sister, I got a Black mom, I got an aunt. And I hear this qualifier for Black women of, you know, she's someone's mama, sister, daughter. No, she's someone, period. It doesn't matter her qualifier, she exists. And because she exists, and for Black women particularly, if we had that qualifier, there would be no civil rights, as much as people don't want to admit it, because you know, Dorothy Heights was a significant player in that movement and she was erased from it. You know, there would be no Black Lives Matter if Black women said, we're only gonna rock for the Black men we know. You know, I cannot tell you how many Black women are out in these streets here in DC who are, you know, organizing the local Black Lives Matter chapter and across not only the nation, but the world. And we don't do it on the qualifier that we know them personally. Even when we're injured, even when we're hurt by these men, you know, we saw Stephon Clark's situation happen. And I saw people, you know, I saw Black women genuinely torn saying, hey, I think I want to sit this situation out. And for those who are, you know, are listening to the conversation who may not be familiar, you know, after Stephon Clark was murdered, there was a series of his social media activity that had come to light almost up until the day he was murdered by police. And it was him with his non-Black, I believe she was Asian girlfriend online, just dragging Black women, you know, calling us all types of stuff, saying all types of things. It was terrible. So a lot of Black women online were like, hey, you know, I feel torn. Like, I don't want to sit this out, but I kind of want to sit this out because I'm not willing to, I don't want to put my physical body on the line in my life for a man that hated me. And so the feedback I saw online is I saw a lot of not just Black men, but also other Black women who were like, no, you need to be out here. You need to be out here. You need to be out here. And the one thing I will tell Black women as we have this conversation amongst ourselves in preparation of Black men is our yes is not a yes if it's a yes that was coerced out of a no, right? Like your activism doesn't mean anything if you only said it because you felt like you had to. And we cannot also ask men to look at us in our entirety and really elevate us simply because we exist in our entirety. If we feel like, oh, you know, I have to be out here on the street simply because he's a Black man and he was murdered today. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be there. I'm not saying those things, but what I am saying is I feel like amongst this conversation between Black people and Black men and Black women, a lot of like, we have to get rid of the theatrics and the performative measures. We have to stop with, you know, the performative allyship amongst each other. You know, the fetishization that happens to Black men, particularly the dark-skinned Black men, like everyone says, like dark skin is in for men right now, but we all know why that is. And then when we're having these conversations, the thing that I would ask for men is to understand that Black women are not a monolith. And we do feel pain. And we talked so much earlier about the strong Black woman stereotype. And in this space, you know, a lot of us, I see people saying, oh, you guys are, but you're not saying it nice. Y'all are coming at people crazy. You're angry. We are angry. We are mad and we are hurt, but that doesn't invalidate us. And so what I ask for from Black men is grace in this situation to understand that, you know, we might not say it in the prettiest way the first time we have the conversation, but the key word there is first. We have to have the ongoing discussion. And so that first time we might come across as harsh, we might come across as angry, you know, we might come across as raw because we are. So give us that grace and create that space for us to have that realistic conversation and have that accountability amongst your friends as well. Ask yourself as a Black man, you know, in this space, do I really want, am I for the liberation of Black people, or am I for the power complex? You know, and do I really want to see Black people liberated, or do I want the power that I see that white men have? And if we don't want to have that conversation, then we're going to continue to be in this space. And so I think that conversations like these, where, you know, us as women are able to come in here and have our truth, you know, this is a heavy conversation. And even though we've been able to laugh and smile, I don't know about you ladies, and I don't want to speak for you, but this is a topic that's really difficult for me. And I talked to Donovan about, like, from an emotional space, because I am one of those women that I'm very active online in conversations with Black men. I have a lot of those discussions. I've been called all types of things by Black women and Black men and what have you in those discussions. But the reality is I hold you all accountable because I love you and I care about you. And on top of that, like, I love you, period. But then on top of that, you know, I'm going to marry a Black man and I'm going to have Black sons and Black daughters. And we cannot keep the world the way it is. Like, I refuse to bring babies into a world that exists as it does, and into a community that exists as it does. And I think until we're really ready to, you know, hold each other accountable with grace and really check each other without awakening each other's egos and while keeping our own egos in check, that's when the discussion starts. And I think these conversations are foundational. And so, Donovan, I really thank you for putting this on.
And I was just going to say, to add to what you said, I think that a lot of times, well, y'all can listen, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like to me within the last few years, it has been like acceptable to be Black, even amongst our own community. All of a sudden, it's okay to have natural hair, and men like natural hair, and men like darker tones, and men like all of these things that were before seen as like only a certain type of man likes. And I feel like a lot of these guys who are trying to come off now as like activists, or like men that are perpetuating that now, were not perpetuating that before. You know what I'm saying? So, which is fine. Everybody grows, and I want you to grow and love and light. That's great. But there's a big area where I feel like we're missing. Loving Black women is not just wearing a shirt that says, I love Black women. Loving Black women is not just like, oh, every once in a while when you see a Black woman with the curl pattern that you like, her hair is nice. You know what I mean? Or, oh, when I see a Black woman, she dark skinned, but she like a Justine Scott dark skin. You know, she a different type of, you know what I'm saying? So when it comes down to it, we need to like really understand what it is to love our Blackness and to love Black women and to love Black culture, instead of just jumping on the bandwagon of what's hot right now, what's acceptable. And I even know with me, that's a huge struggle with me, because even in dating, a lot of times I'd be like, bro, before I had Instagram fame, you're not going to tell me that you're somebody that would have noticed me. So we're not going to pretend like now all of a sudden you notice my aesthetic. You know what I mean? That's not even who you present yourself to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, being pro-Black is a bop. It's a movement. It's not just it is a whole physical body thing. You know, it's a mental thing. So I think, just as to what you said, is creating grace, creating accountability, but also just knowing what it is that, like, educate yourself about what you're really standing up for, and be entire in that. Because when you're half about it, that's when you say, oh, well, she's like my mom, or I'm protecting her because I got a mom. No. I'm protecting her because she is, just because she's here. Just, that's it.
Facts, all facts. We probably run out of time. We probably got like 10 more minutes, but there's a question that wasn't a troll question.
It's a really good question.
He said, can a man openly admit his flaws and being influenced by negative stereotypes of Black women and still be seen as a potential partner or spouse? Men knowing themselves was mentioned a few times, so this is speaking to those who are in the process. Can you define doing the work, what the work looks like? I don't think it's a blueprint, but if y'all could give them a little.
Go ahead, Jade.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, I was in a relationship with someone that consistently talked about doing the work as a man. And it was the first time that I, in a relationship, used words that he used words such as knowing your triggers, knowing your boundaries, knowing your trauma. That's not something that had ever been typical in a relationship for me. And doing work is very individual, but I think that it starts with, again, those hard conversations of communication with self. I think that sometimes we avoid conversations with our spouses, our partners, our friends, business colleagues, because much like an earlier question, it seems taboo. Men don't want to be, Black men especially, do not want to be seen as weak. So to admit that there was problematic thinking or program thinking or institutional thinking to someone, that's difficult. But when you open up those conversations, it leaves room for you to be able to have the groundwork of knowing where you've created those stereotypes from. If you don't talk about it, if you're just trying to do all this self-work without communicating where your issues are, I think it's harder to address. So it starts at a very basic level. And yes, the answer to your question is, of course, you should be seen as a potential partner or spouse, because we all come into life, especially if you're over 25, with life issues, with baggage, with however you see it. But that is part of the work, is being able to be open with yourself, your partners, transparency. And that shouldn't prevent you from being a great anything, spouse, lover, husband, brother. And it's not easy work, but as complex as it is, it's something that can be worked through. And it just starts at a very foundational conversation.
And I think that one thing that we have to do, just like Monica said, as far as creating grace, is also, like, I hear a lot of guys say, like, I don't want to pay for somebody's past mistakes, or I don't want to pay for blah, 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 blah. And I just want to say that no matter how much someone is healed, you will always be reminded of, like, what's not healed yet once you're in a relationship. There's some things that you literally just can't heal from until you're encountered with it again. And like, oh, shoot, I didn't even know I still had this issue. So
Yeah.
when guys say that, it baffles me, because, like, we all come into relationships with baggage, whether that's a medical condition, a mental condition, whether it's traumas from childhood, whether it's, you can have baggage that looks different. So if my baggage is an ex that I maybe have not dealt with mentally with all those factors, that doesn't change any other baggage that somebody else may bring in. So I'm not saying that you should be toxic. I'm not saying that that's okay. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that, like, a lot of women have been cheated on in every single relationship that they've ever been in. A lot of women have watched other women raise children alone, even if they didn't raise them alone. Every single time one of my girlfriends or family members calls me and tells me somebody cheated on them, it is trauma all over again, because I feel it just as strong. And at that moment, I'm like, damn, here we go again. The trauma is still there. So when it comes down to it, it's about creating grace. We're creating grace for you in the position that you're in. Half of us got our own business, own money, own whatever. We might have to create grace for you. You know what I mean? So it's both sides. It's not just one.
Monica, y'all want to chime in on it?
I think they both did a phenomenal job covering it. I just think that I absolutely do agree that you could be a potential partner, because when we talk about the concept of potential for folks, a lot of people get caught up in the potential they project as opposed to the potential that already exists in the person. And so being able to identify that you have those preconceived notions within yourself and then creating the path forward, you have shown that you have the potential to continue to grow and really unlearn and decolonize your mind from these thought processes and really, release yourself from those shackles, so to speak. And so for me, I think that it definitely doesn't disqualify for anything. It makes you a great potential candidate as a partner, because you've shown that you're willing to do the work, and that is doing the work, as both the ladies said before me.
I know I myself is constantly working on myself, and I know nobody disqualifying me from being no partner. So long as I would add as a male, like, long as you sincere about that, doing the work. Because from a lot of my homeboys, I know that they're doing the work isn't really doing the work. So long as you're sincere about that, that's your workout. So I think this about to cut us off, but I will be, with y'all permission and acceptance, I will be sharing this to my socials so that other people can chime in, ask questions ongoing. I appreciate the dialogue and passing the mic.
We appreciate
It was a pleasure
you.
talking to you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for creating the space for us, Donovan. We appreciate you because not a lot of Black men are doing it. So we just want to give you your kudos. We appreciate you and your page. We know it's not easy. You be dealing with a lot of bullshit. So we appreciate you taking the time to highlight our voices and to, you know, just care enough to talk to us. And ladies, I'm going to follow all of you guys. I think I just tagged you on my last post so you can see and we can, you know, continue our conversations.
Absolutely. The work is ongoing.
Always.
Ongoing. Thank y'all, ladies.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Bye, ladies. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a great night, guys. All right. Bye-bye.